Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful cross bookmark. You're going to need a size 10 crochet thread. You can pick this up at any crochet store or like at Walmart. And then you will need a number 7 crochet hook or 1.65 millimeter. So start out making your slip knot and place it onto your hook like normal. If you haven't worked much with the thread, it will take a while to get used to because it is a lot harder to hold on to. So to start, we're going to chain 5 and join to form a circle. So join with that first chain. This is going to be the very end of our cross. Okay, so now we're going to be working in this tiny little circle that's very hard to see. So we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to half double crochet 17 times in the circle. So you're not going actually into any particular stitch, you're going right through the center of the circle. So if you're having a hard time with this part, don't be disheartened because this is really the hardest part, simply because it's so tiny and there's very little work to actually hold on to. But as you go and the piece gets larger, it gets much easier to do. Alright, so once you've got all your stitches, join with the beginning chain to form a circle. Now we're going to chain 3. This is going to count as your first double crochet. Now we're going to double crochet 3 in the same space for a total of 4 double crochet. This is the start of our first shell stitch. Now we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to do 4 double crochet in the next stitch. We're not too worried about gauge in a project like this. As long as you use the same gauge throughout the entire project, it will work just fine. Alright, so here is one shell stitch completed, and now we're going to want to be working in that chain 2 space. So we're going to turn our project and slip stitch back till we get to that chain 2 space. And here's the chain 2 space, so we just slip stitch back one more time. Alright, so each shell stitch we're going to be working from the previous row's chain 2 space. So each time we're going to have to slip stitch back. We're going to repeat this shell pattern until we have our desired length. I'm going to have 13 shells. So once you get back to that chain 2 space, you're going to just repeat it with a chain 3, 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then 4 double crochet. So basically you're having 4 double crochet, chain 2, 4 double crochet, and that's your shell pattern. Again, I'm going to do mine to have 13 shells. If you want your bookmark longer or shorter, you can adjust it there. So here I'm doing 4 double crochet to finish out this shell. Alright, so now we've got 2 complete. So again, we're going to have to slip stitch back over to the chain 2 space. Alright, so let's make another shell. Chain 3, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 4 double crochet. Alright, so here is my finished row of shells. I have 13 shells plus my beginning circle. So from here we're going to go ahead and finish off and cut our yarn and start with the arms of our cross. So I already completed my first arm so you can see what it looks like. So I will show you how to do the other one now. You're going to be working in about the 8th and 9th shell from our starting row. So you're going to again start out with a slip knot on your hook and join. So for this side I'm going to be joining in the 9th shell. And what I'm going to do is just join at the very top of the outermost shell in the row. So right through the top of that last double crochet in the 9th shell. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky if you're on a side with the slip stitch in it. It can kind of get in the way. So take your time. Alright, so once you've slip stitched in there, we need to make a foundation here. So we're going to do a chain 2. Now we're going to join with a slip stitch in the 8th shell. So again, I'm going to just join in the top of the very last double crochet in that shell. And we're just joining there with a slip stitch again. So now we have a starting point where we're going to be making our shells. We're going to be working again in that chain 2 space. So again, we'll want to turn our work and we're going to slip stitch back into that chain 2 space that we just created. Alright, so now we're ready to make our shells. You can make it to your desired length. I'm going to make 4 shells here. So again, for your shell, you're going to start out with a chain 3. That counts as your first double crochet. So now you need 3 more double crochet. Here's 1. 2. And 3, chain 2, and then 4 double crochet. Okay, so there's my first shell. I'm going to need 3 more like this, so slip stitch back to your chain 2 space. Once you have your slip stitch back into that chain 2 space, you can go ahead and create your next shell. Alright, so here is what it looks like after we've completed both arms. Now we need to make our border, and this is kind of going to be our foundation border because we'll do another border in white after this, or whatever color you want to use. So go ahead and chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch into the next shell. You're just going to slip stitch right into that last double crochet in the previous shell. Chain 2, slip stitch into the next shell. It's the outermost double crochet of the previous row. We're going to continue with that all the way around. When you get to the corners where the arms meet the base of the cross, you're going to chain 3 and go into that next shell. And just continue around with chain 2, slip stitch into the next shell. And we're going to go around the entire cross like this. Once you get to the end, you're just going to slip stitch about 2 stitches from your last shell right into the base. It should create a nice straight line from your previous shell. Now from here we're going to use a single crochet in each stitch around this circle. And you're going to want to leave about 2 spaces so that you can have a direct line again to that outer shell. It should match equally with the other side so that it looks the same. And then begin with your chain 2 and slip stitch into that outermost stitch of the shell again, and continue around like this. Alright, and once you get to the end where there's an arm or at the top of the cross, you're going to single crochet in the previous stitches. Then you'll do 2 single crochet into the chain 2 space. And then single crochet into the previous stitches. And then from here we'll continue on with our chain 2 and slip stitch into the next shell. And again, when you get to the corner where the arm and the base meet, chain 3 and then slip stitch into that next shell. Don't slip stitch into the corner of the cross. You want to slip stitch into the shell. Like so. Continue on with chain 2 and slip stitch into the next shell. Again, at the top of the cross, you're going to do the single crochet in each stitch. Two single crochet in the chain space. Single crochet in each stitch. Alright, so here is what it looks like after we have our foundation border ready. So now we have to actually do the border. So I used light pink to start out, and now I'm going to use a white for my border. For this, we're going to start at the very bottom of our cross, and we're going to want to be as center as we possibly can. So find that center bottom stitch and slip stitch into it to join. So now we're going to do a chain 1, and we're going to put 1 single crochet in each one of these stitches here. Don't worry too much about a stitch count here. It's not about the number of stitches necessarily. As long as everything looks even from one side to the next, a stitch count really isn't that important, though you should try to use the same stitch count throughout. So depending on how loosely or how tightly you've crocheted, you're going to want to put 3 to 4 single crochet in each chain 2 space. So do not single crochet into any shell. We are simply single crocheting into our chain 2 spaces. Again, I'm mostly using 4 stitches, but if you find that that's too many, if you did your work tighter, then you can certainly use just 3. When you get to this corner space, it is larger since we did a chain 3 rather than chain 2, so you'll want to put 5 to 6 single crochet into the corner chain spaces, depending on, again, how tightly or how loosely you did your stitches. I end up actually putting 6 single crochet in the bottom ones on each side, and then I did 5 single crochet on the top too. So just make sure whatever you do, remember that number so that you can do it the same from one side to the next, so your cross isn't lopsided or anything. And then continue with 3 to 4 single crochet in each chain 2 space. Now don't worry if you think your cross is starting to look lopsided, or if the ends are curling up. Don't worry about that, because we will be ironing it at the end. Just try to be consistent throughout with the number of single crochet you're doing in each space. So So we've got one more space here, a chain 2 space. Alright, so now we're at the end of our first arm, and for this we're going to put a single crochet in the next stitch. So in that first corner, we kind of have 3 corners in each end, right? So in this first corner, that first stitch, you're going to single crochet. Now we're going to do 4 chains. This is kind of making a pickaxe stitch somewhat, kind of our own twist to it. So chain 4 and then single crochet into the same space. This is going to kind of accentuate that corner and make it look very beautiful and elegant. So now single crochet till you get to the very center outermost stitch here. And we're going to again do that same stitch, so single crochet, chain 4 here. And then single crochet again into the same stitch. There we go. Alright, and now we're gonna again single crochet down to our last corner of this arm, if that makes sense. And then we will repeat that stitch one more time with a single crochet, chain 4, single crochet, all in the same space. Again, what we're doing is kind of accentuating those 3 points to each end. It just gives it a very elegant, beautiful look. Alright, so there's our first arm done. Now continue single crocheting into each of those chain spaces, just like we were before. Make sure you're using the same number of single crochet throughout your project. So we want it to be nice and even. Alright, so I went ahead and finished my border. Now we're going to do the tassel. So I'm going to chain 30. Again, here you can customize the length of your tassel if you want one ridiculously long, or if you just want one very short, or you could just leave it off right here if you don't want it at all. Then you can just finish off your work after your slip stitch. But I'm going to go ahead and again, I'm going to chain 30. Alright, so go ahead and finish your work after you have your chains. You're going to have about 10 pieces for the end of your tassel. If you want a very thick one, obviously you can change the number to suit what you want it to look like, and you just need a piece 4 to 5 inches long or so. Place your bundle onto where your chains end, and you're just going to tie a couple knots here. Just try to make sure that your bundle of pieces of yarn here are going to be right at the very end of your chains. I'm going to tie it as tightly and securely as possible. Alright, so now we need another scrap of yarn so that we can tie these ends together so they don't look kind of like a silly U shape. So we're just going to squeeze them all together like that, make them look all nice, and we'll get another little piece of yarn a few inches long. Place it under your work and we're just going to tie this together. Make sure all of your pieces are laying flat and tight. If you need to comb through them a bit with your fingers, do that. Alright, once everything's in place, just tie it as tightly and securely as possible. I'm going to put one knot here and then turn it over and tie a couple knots on the other side. Alright, and that is it. So now we're just going to trim these ends so they're nice and even and give it a nice finished look. Alright, so here we are. We just need to weave in our ends. I have a couple ends left here to weave in. And now we are going to iron. See, it doesn't lay quite flat right now, so we want to iron it, and I'm going to starch it as well. So place it onto your ironing board, and we're just going to use a hot heat. This is cotton, so it's not going to damage it. And we're just going to iron over the entire piece. Try to make sure it's laying evenly. Everything looks flat and even on both sides. Try to get your little corner pieces to look just perfect. Now if you don't have an iron, you can always just put it inside of a book, lay it flat as nice and even as you can, and put it in your book and close it. Maybe set some other books on top so it's nice and heavy and just leave it there for a few days and it will flatten out nice. So I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of starch here, just to help it keep its shape and to keep it nice and flat. This one I'm actually making for my sponsor child from India. She is a very important part of our life, even though we've never met her. So I just wanted to give her something beautiful and special, handmade for Easter. So it's going to be going through the mail all the way to India, so I want it to stay nice and beautiful. So I'm going to starch both sides of this project. Alright, and then I'm just going to do the tail here real quick. Alright, so we are done. I hope you guys enjoyed this project, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more free tutorials.